And there's some general guidelines that I can give you that I think will be really actionable. I'll say this. This is the power here of great coaching and great support. It's really hard when you're in the weeds with your ambition, your goals, your excitement, you're ready to get charging, to actually take a really smart and pragmatic approach. That's why I'm a big believer in coaching. That's why I'm a coach in many ways. It's very, very easy for athletes to do too much too quickly. So that's your rate of acceleration. It's not just the total load, but it's how quickly you accelerate. Too much too quickly, particularly with the focus on both strength training, taking typically a prioritized aspect, and some high intensity in the bike and some swim. And so it's very difficult to integrate 3 disciplines, swim, bike, run, a couple of them with pretty short high intensity components and strength training, and ramping up week after week after month in a really smart and pragmatic way. Way too many athletes pile on too much too soon and struggle. They get injured, they get fatigue, they get burnout of motivation, etc. And so what I encourage you to do as you ramp back in is first set the right mindset. If we started in around the start of the year, so January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere in there, until February 15th, this is just rule of thumb, okay, nothing more, but until about February 15th, keep a preparation mindset, what I call a preparatory mindset, okay? In other words, I encourage you over the course of the first 6 weeks or so not to focus on the building fitness part of it, all right? Fitness is going to be building. It's going to be foundational, but it almost wants to sneak up behind you and whack you on the back of the head. All right? It's going to be occurring, but the primary focus is still getting the body ready to accept higher load that begins towards the end of February and extends certainly into March. Right now, instead, focus on winning workouts, so successful completion without failing, executing them with intent. That means going very easy on the easy sessions if asked to do so, challenging yourself on the ones, but ensuring that you're successful, doing every session with really good form, okay, and leaving a little room to grow. Most of the sessions, leave yourself with a little bit left in the tank. So this doesn't mean that all the training that you're going to be doing is easy here. But I mentioned this before, the mindset is winning every workout. In other words, from January 1st, which is now a couple of weeks ago, but January 1st till February 15th, never go till failure. This is a really good rule of thumb. Associated with that, for the first few weeks, your mission should be, and this doesn't sound very performance smelling, but underwhelm yourself for 3 weeks. I like athletes to leave plenty of capacity in the initial weeks of training. If you're like most athletes, when you come out of the holidays, you've probably had the last few weeks, even a month, where there's been pretty low load. So don't shock the system. There's no benefit of doing that. It's just risky. Don't suddenly add 50% of training load. Begin easy. Start. The third area, really embrace the easy. Everyone wants to get from A to B as quickly as you can. But the first thing is embrace the easy. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing is understanding with clarity where the key sessions are. And your key sessions over the course of your preseason, Q1, are pretty simple to identify typically. Because the first is strength. Everyone should have a priority on strength right now. So those are important. You want to make sure that you're getting in at least a couple of key focus strength sessions every week. We might not label it key always, but strength is important at this phase of the year. It is a bullseye. Boom. Alrighty, so that's always important. So you're going to modulate as you plan your week, which we'll get into in a few moments, but you're going to think about strength as priorities, okay? And then the sessions that tend to be more key right now are the ones that are more demanding, so higher intensity. Alrighty, and you place those, typically 2 to maybe 3 sessions a week. So those are your building blocks. But everything else is supportive. It's either going to be technical, low stress and soul-filling, or focus more on endurance, the mythical zone 2, as you hear about that. Alrighty, in those sessions, go easier than you ever imagined. Embrace more walk breaks than usual if you're running. Think about it as a pressure release valve from life. Scale the intensity and durations of these sessions when needed so that you can win the sessions and win the weeks of training. This is really, really important. So we're going preparatory and mindset. We're going to underwhelm ourselves for 3 weeks. We're going to identify the key sessions. You're going to really embrace the easy, being courageous to throttle it down as necessary so you can win next week, not just always try and win this week. And then finally, conquer your baseline habits. This is the time, because you're growing up in commitment and training load over January into February, now into March, and it's big. So this is the time now that if training is going to ramp, it ain't going to get any easier. So now the time is to get in with intention and dial in those baseline habits. Because you know if commitment goes up and training load goes up, fatigue is going to go up. So you've got to have the antidote of that. You've got to build your habits. Really, really key. Alrighty? That's absolutely fundamental. What those are for me, always making sure you're getting organized. The Sunday special, if you haven't heard or you don't understand that, either reach out to us and we can send you a packet of information on the Sunday special, info@purplepatchfitness.com, or go back to a prior episode when we've actually talked about that in extent. So the Sunday special, getting really, really organized. That's critical. Number 2, daily hydration is important. It's a cornerstone. It's really easy to implement. About 3 liters a day, important for your health, your immune system, your cognitive function, your performance readiness, etc. And then dialing in your eating and sleeping habits. These are some of the components that require investigation and prioritization to bolster that performance base layer so that you can be effective across both sport and life. So that's what we're thinking about in pre-season right now. Very, very practical, okay? Start slow from where you're at. Underwhelm yourself. Focus the key sessions. Easy. Build supporting habits. No more than that. But how do you actually construct your training? This is where we get really granular. In part 3 now, let's talk about building a block of training and a training week. All right, this is it. This is time. The word, when we think about this, integration. This is it. If you want to be successful this year, you've got to learn how to integrate your training into this big thing called life. All of the competing demands that you have with family, friends, work, travel, whatever it might be, integrate it into life so that you have a fabric, a woven fabric of performance. Do not, bold, double underlined, do not dump training on top of your life. If you dump training that you believe is necessary to get you to where it is, but it's unsustainable, and you dump it on top of life, and that forces you to consistently compromise other parts of life, including your sleep, and you try and cram a program in that is unsustainable, just because you think that's what's needed, you will fail. You will be frustrated, you'll lose motivation, you might get injured, and you certainly won't get the performance yield, especially over the arc of the whole year. So don't dump it. Build your training in a sensible way. Step by step, great. Firstly, macro level. Don't try to do everything every week. This is really important. Triathlon is one sport. It is made up of 3 disciplines: swim, bike, run. But it is not swimming, cycling, and running. The sport is swim, bike, run. That's what it is. One sport. We also need to add strength into that recipe to get ready. So with swim, bike, and run, and as a part of that bullseye is strength, that's a lot of disciplines, a lot of training. And we're trying to develop, improve your swimming, improve your running, get better at biking, and integrate strength as a catalyst and a vortex to get bigger returns, let alone all of the health components into that. As soon as coaches or athletes try to cram all of the pieces of a regular training program across a single discipline, so for swimming, we need some speed, we need some over distance, we need some threshold, we need some strength base. Cycling, we need some low cadence, big gear, we need some high intensity, we need some extended endurance. Running, we need some hill repeats, we need a track session, we need some over distance, we need some frequency, etc. As soon as you try and wrap all of those components into a single week of training, everything breaks. And so just come up out of the weeds a little bit and liberate yourself. You don't need to hit everything in every discipline every week. Instead, think about it as a block of 3 weeks. That's a proven, smart approach that works. And I don't mean 3 weeks of work and 1 week of recovery. That's not what I mean. Here's how we do it at Purple Patch. Feel free to draw from this when you build your own program. We tend to think about the first week as a week of training where we're building pretty good challenge focused around 2 to 3 key sessions in the week, ones that place greater demand. Now, at this time of the year, it tends to be slightly higher intensity, less of a focus on muscular resilience and big endurance, and certainly very little race specificity. So in Q1, it's still the same thing, a more demanding week with 2 or 3 key sessions, all right? Week 2, it's very similar. Another week of challenge with 2 to 3 different key sessions. So it won't just be a rinse and repeat of that week. It's going to have evolved sessions with evolved focus. And as you look at those 2 weeks, you can start to identify swim, bike, and run, intensity, strength-based, etc. Week 3 has a slightly different personality. We call it a transition week rather than week 3. That transition tends to include 2 to 3 days of lighter training load. So that's intentional recovery, allowing the body to adapt and absorb the training that you've done in the prior 2 weeks, and then a flash of high intensity in the week and typically something more demanding at the weekend. Now, as the year progresses, those transition weeks, the 3rd week of each training cycle, if you want to call it that, tends to mimic the rhythm of a race week. So it might include some intensity after a little bit of rejuvenation in the middle of the week as a little bit of priming. And then we might have at the weekend some race-specific dress rehearsal type session where an athlete practices their fueling, their hydration and intensity right around the demands of the race. And we do this because that really leads to greater understanding of what the athlete needs to feel good on race day, therefore greater performance predictability.